Hello, welcome to this episode of Back to the City. Today I'm very excited to have my good friend Michael Gray. But welcome,
Great
Michael.
to be here. Thanks.
We're going to be talking about The Assortment, which is my favorite dance night. It's the third Saturday of the month at Mortimer's.
That's right.
The next one is Saturday 16th of December at Mortimer's, and it will carry on being the third Saturday of each month. Also at Mortimer's, 4 times a year, you and DJ Jenny have house sessions.
Correct.
And you and Jenny are going to be at the Fine Line in January?
Yeah, we will be at the
house
Fine Line on Friday, January 5th, and it's a resolutions party.
Resolutions
party.
party?
Yeah, so it has kind of a workout, stay fit
Yeah.
kind of theme to it.
Be your best self.
So no, we're not just going to play Flashdance Maniac all night, but it is going to be that kind of energy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So pretty excited to joining forces again for that as well too. So more to come on that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you recently, for the second year in a row, performed in the First Avenue main room on Halloween.
I did.
Maybe let's begin with focusing on how preparing for and performing that set, curating that experience, how that differs from or relates to what you would do with your residencies at Mortimer's.
Yeah. It's a complex set of emotions that go into playing on that stage, which I had only played on, one other time when I was in my band.
Mercurial Rage.
Yeah, Mercurial Rage,
Yeah.
which I think was 2009 or 2010. It was for Voltage, so it was a fashion show, and they would curate your outfits for you. You'd have a fashion designer that would curate an outfit for you, but there'd also be runway designers as well too. So that was the first time I'd ever played there, and you kind of just don't forget it.
Yes.
Even though I had been backstage, I've been to First Avenue so many times that even being backstage and even just being on the side of the stage doesn't really capture what it feels like to actually step on the stage, because
Absolutely.
you're like, oh my God, Purple Rain. Oh my God, The Replacements. Oh my God, I've seen Jesus and Mary Chain here. Oh my God, you could just do the list on and on and on,
And the cognitive dissonance of now it's me. Now I'm...
Yeah, it's bizarre. So I would
is.
say the first time I was asked to play there, it was actually New Year's Eve of 2021, but the pandemic was still on fire. And I don't, if we all remember that year, not to talk about sad things, most of New Year's was canceled, throughout the Twin Cities area, because Omicron had made its way into our lives. And, I remember receiving that phone call to both, get the gig for New Year's Eve. And I remember the call where they had to shut it down. And
What a roller coaster.
yeah, but at the same time, it was just I have so much respect for Sonia and Nate and James Taylor, who has been booking me for these shows, and the First Avenue family, just for the respect that we have for each other and their artists locally. So I'd do anything for them. So if they need to cancel the gig, it was just that's what you need to do. If it's for public health,
Yes.
I'm all for it. Although it was heartbreaking, it was you never really know. You're well, is that it? Was that going to be the opportunity to play in the main room, or was something else going to come up? And Halloween of 2022 was the first opportunity I had to play there. The comforting part was that I knew the other DJs, some better than others.
Yeah, like Roisin.
So I took some comfort in that. It was Roisin, it was Chico Chi, and Izzy P. And they're all fabulous DJs in their own lane and own way. And so that's the part that, sometimes I have to pinch myself, not just at the venue, but that you get to be on stage with other really talented people, right? And so that part you have to emotionally deal with. So you're well, I have to get back up on stage at First Avenue. And this time, it's not just to play a few songs for a fashion show. It's to play an hour plus set for people. Not only amongst a pretty full room for a weekday, both years, which is just great, but also doing that with your peers can really kind of do things to you mentally that you aren't necessarily prepared for, that I just try to take care of when I'm at home. The preparation really isn't necessarily all that different from what I do when I do the assortment, because the last thing I want to do is to try to like lose the reason why people like to come and see me DJ.
Absolutely.
So I think that I could over-engineer it, or that's what the path I could have chosen to take. But I did the same thing that I always do, which is I open up a crate or a folder in my software, and I just start throwing things in it. Things that I thought about that day, things that I haven't played in a long time, things that I feel fit better in a, in this case, in a larger room rather than a smaller room.
At what stage are you doing that? Is that like the afternoon of the show?
That's usually, it's usually the day of the show. So I try to spend the majority of my time before a show takes place to promote it and to connect with the people who support me. Not just by putting posts out there, but most people that know me know you're going to get a personal touch with me, because it's a community, right? And just like the DJ community is a community, so are the people that come and support your curated nights. And I found in the city in particular that the DJs that are having the most success harness that community. Jake Rude is one of them. He's huge on community and connection, and he's one of the first DJs that really kind of took a chance on me and gave me an opportunity to play.
You were DJing with Transmission. Music.
DJing with Transmission, and just being able to like get up and understand his role a lot differently, because when you get up and play somebody else's night, they don't know anything about you, and you have to find ways to connect with them as well too. But it was that connection, and I would say Shannon Blowtorch, that's another good friend of mine and DJ that really relishes and succeeds in both not being just like uber talented, but also fostering community.
Absolutely.
And checking in with people and talking with people and spending time with people and being a human being. So, I don't want to lose, I don't want connection is key. So I don't want to lose any of that, but I do want to spend time being appreciative and humble and make sure that I'm checking in with folks. So I spend a lot of time on the promotion side leading up to it. And then it really kind of hits me usually a few days before that. I'm like, okay, well, I got to play the main room, so I have to put some serious thought into it. And so it usually is. It was that afternoon. I woke up in the morning, had kind of a usual day, and then I just opened my computer and do exactly what I told you. It's lunchtime, and you've got food in front of you, and you're thinking to yourself, what can I put in this folder that both keeps the essence of assortment and my style of DJing intact, but also fits in with a Tuesday night Halloween costume party.
Yes, I love that you said that the food is there. It seems what's nourishing. I feel like players, because girls are players too. That's one of the songs. That was that you played.
That's right. Yeah,
and that's an assortment staple. There was also Timbaland, The Way I Are.
There was a Steve Aoki remix, which I'm not a big Steve Aoki fanatic whatsoever. That is a song at assortment where I would normally play the original track. But when you are in the main room, you've got 1,000+ people. Let's go big. Let's find that remix. But also, it's very much on brand with what I would do.
This is why I thought it would be fun to kind of begin with that First Avenue event. Momentarily, we'll shift our attention to the assortment and establish a little bit more about what the ethos of the assortment is. Because so many people came out who are assortment regulars.
They did.
But then also, you posted the next day, the room was packed and people were partying. I got some footage of the room and how responsive the dancers were, both assortment regulars and people who were perhaps experiencing you for the first time, particularly at the end of the set with Gasolina and then Cascada, Everything We Touch into My Neck, My Back, Liquid. The crowd was really into it and very responsive. That was a really good climax, I think. It worked really well in the main room, that collection of songs that perhaps I have heard, I think, maybe all of those songs at the Assortment.
Yeah.
But back to back with that intensity was perfect, I think, for that setting.
I appreciate that. And the reason I landed there, interestingly enough, was because I put, when I'm sitting at the dinner table, I try to cap it at like throw 25 to 50 songs in a folder.
Yep.
And if you saw my folder structure, there's not a lot of structure to it. I think it's just kind of one of my weird, superpowers that I have with neurodivergency, especially, where a lot of the library, a lot of the thoughts are up here already. Mm-hmm. So putting them in a structured folder just helps me like focus on, okay, I'm going to maybe play a lot of these things, or like maybe I'm going to play like none of these things, because I have no idea what's going to happen when I get up on stage. Mm-hmm. I can make a lot of assumptions, and I did try to make some assumptions. It's like, okay, I think I'm just going to like focus mainly on like, hip hop bangers, pop bangers, that kind of thing. Like that's probably what I'll do. So a lot of it was like throwbacks and hip hop songs. But when I got up on stage after Roisin and Espada, they had that place just so pumped up because they were playing stuff that was really high BPM, high octane. Mm-hmm. Eventually, Espada got into doing Intergalactic and getting into a little bit more hip hop. But the energy when I looked out was like, okay, people are partying. So like, I need to like shift gears. I don't want to just go into something that's low tempo hip hop per se.
Yep.
To throw them off. I want to keep the energy really high. Mm-hmm. And so the reason I ended where I ended the set is because when I was backstage, Izzy said, I really want to do hip hop tonight. And I was like, oh. And so in my mind, I was like, I need to set her up that way.
Yeah.
Because Izzy is like a fabulous DJ. So it's like, I want to set Izzy up to do what she wants to do. Mm-hmm. And intends to do in front of all of these people.
Yeah.
And so my mind was like, there has to be a certain point where I'm kind of getting back into hip hop R&B.
Yeah, passing the baton.
Right. So then when we pass over, then it's going to feel seamless.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like we planned on that, even though we didn't plan on it. Because if I planning
can get in the way.
That will get in the way of
presence.
Like just being real.
Yes. And
so I kind of looked at the clock, after the costumes were done, and I was like, okay, well, it's time. So I was like, Flow Rider time, 128 BPM, get them going, but also just creating an arc so that like I knew when Izzy was going to come in, I knew the BPM range of like most of the hip hop that I think she was going to intend on playing. Ended with Love on Top, right? A good sing along, a good way to end a set, a good way to just have people look at each other, sing, and take a break. And then it seamlessly weaves into what Izzy did for the rest of the night. And the great part is like most people stayed. Yeah. So that's really like what I'm always looking for, whether it's myself or collaborating with other people, is like, it's our night. So like, let's feed off of each other. Yeah. So that's really kind of how that came into fruition, that sequence of songs. Because the other things that like you have all heard things that other people there haven't seen because they've not seen me before, but also it's sequentially made sense in my head to go there and end there at that time, so that way we can kind of like move on and keep this like wonderful Halloween experience going until you got to push people out.
Absolutely.
That's always the goal.
So much responsivity. You're responsive to the assortment community, which is a subsection of the audience. You're responsive to the broader crowd, responsive to the other DJs.
Yeah.
What are you working from and what are you preparing for?
Yeah.
As I was paying more attention to all of those components of these recent experiences of you being on the First Avenue main stage, I found myself thinking back to what you drew attention to, I think, the day of, maybe the day before, your prior experience with Mercurial Rage.
Yeah.
So I was intrigued in your experience of the differences as well as the similarities between being a frontman, performing your own music in that instance, and then the more recent experiences of playing to a crowd in the same room, but as a DJ.
I know that I would not be the DJ that I am today if I wasn't a musician first.
Yeah, you have a lot of the attributes and the energy of a front person.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a humility because of the breadth of the music as well and the
Right.
scope to tap into different aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
And then encourage others to tap into aspects of themselves.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting, the continuity, like frontman to enthusiastic
Yeah.
dancing DJ.
Yeah.
But also the difference and the breadth that it opens up.
Yeah, there's, I would say, fundamentally, I loved playing in bands. I really did. I love all the people that I got to play with and play for.
Yeah.
Mercurial Rage in particular, bless all of them. I have to remind them all the time. Most bands don't get to even do what we just did.
Yep.
So we have to humble ourselves, and playing in a new wave band in Minneapolis when you're not the suburbs is challenging. I do think that what we were trying to do was ahead of its time for the city, because when we inevitably kind of fell to the wayside, there were a lot more bands incorporating electronic music into their rock music sets as well too. We are, the home of Husker Du and the Replacements. We are the home of a certain kind of genre in a lot of ways, and I would say the 90s especially breeded a lot of great sort of British rock revival stuff with bands like Polara and all that. These are all family and friends of mine.
Yeah, Mercurial Rage was connected to Sustones.
We were a Sustones band.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I think that it feels good when someone like Ed can recognize talent and wants to produce it, wants to put it out. I think that's I would say, not every band gets to have that. I will say that for me anyways, I am special in terms of how maniacal I am about how things are supposed to work in terms of logistics, in terms of promotion, in terms of engagement with other people. And, when you play in bands, everybody's on a different level. And some just want to be I just show up with my guitar, I put it on stage, and then I pack it up and go home. Right? That's the role that they want to play. And, my poor band members had to deal with how I perceived what being in a band should look like.
Now
and so
you can apply that same philosophy just to yourself, and it's not tyrannical.
That's what I mean. Is that I feel like
before.
it's better for I'm a great DJ collaborator.
Yes.
That's different to me because it's sort of like playing tennis with your opponent, but you're playing doubles with them suddenly. They're not even that it's an opponent. I don't like to look at it that way. I don't look at DJs as my competition.
Yeah.
I really don't. I really think that authentic, good DJs that do good work, I like to DJ with them. I like to be at their DJ nights. I like to respect their craft and their artwork and whatnot. But when you play in bands, it's just a different kind of vibe and energy in terms of that competitiveness.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that I'm not super into that. My thing has always just been being humble and trying to just continually get better. Right? And so those folks that have been following my event for a very long time, they have seen the progression more than folks that haven't.
There was one assortment around about 1 o'clock. There was an issue with the controller.
Yep.
And then you thought maybe it's time for an upgrade. And you will be upgrading to this FLX 10. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep.
And in the post that you made about doing so, you were sharing that you use your laptop essentially just as a library via Serato.
Yep.
And it's important for you to be able to have your eyes on the board. Could you share a little bit about the use of the controller that you have been using, and as you wait for the new controller, what you're excited about, what doors that will open up?
Yeah, I am a unapologetic Pioneer junkie. I started with Traktor back in the day, and it did not connect with it, even though it sounded good, worked great. And if you use Traktor, it's great stuff. The minute I started using Pioneer boards, it just felt like home to me. And so, my current controller, and where I've graduated to there is, and why I was so excited about it is it's, you know, at least at that time, it was the most like lightweight, portable, CDJ-ish type controller, right? And so the platters and jog wheels are the same size as a, you know, 3000, a CDJ 3000, and the mixing console is somewhat similar to the 900 mixer. And so all the dials and things just felt more like pro club ready, whereas like previous controllers, jog wheels are smaller, great board, but different flexibility in terms of the style and the way that I DJ. So things that are important to me and why I love this controller and what I love about the next controller is the platters are huge for me. I use them. I do not scratch, but I use them vigorously in terms of building in different effects to mix and blend. It's important that you utilize your platters as well too. And so you have to utilize your platters to beat match. And if they feel club ready and you can beat match using club ready jog wheels, you can also transfer that over to a club that already has a CDJ setup, right? But for me, I like to have this library because my brain is like so crazy and so full of songs and information. I don't want to be limited to anything. I always want to have everything at my fingertips. I don't want to have to rely on a flash drive if I don't have to.
Right.
I want to have my library. And so
That's all the laptop is doing though. I noticed when you were on the First Avenue main stage, like your laptop is quite far away from where
I always
you
put
were.
it off to the side.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of DJs put it in the middle. It's probably better for your neck to have it in the middle. I think that's often why they do it. Some DJs, they rely on the waveforms that are on their computer, and I do too, so that's what I'm looking at. So the computer is like both a library and from a mixing perspective, I try to do a lot of that when I'm just preparing track by track, but also you can see when you load a track, the sound variance between a track that loads like this versus a track that loads like this. So in order to mix those two songs together, you're gonna have to increase your gain on one track versus the other track to make sure that you're not just beat matching, but you're also mixing it in to the next track.
It's not just the beat that needs to match.
So I peer over at things, but it really is like a big library of songs. And so the new controller, which is great, is that like it also will include the waveforms on the actual platters themselves, which is one less thing I have to look at when I'm loading tracks. So it's just more flexibility in terms of keeping your eye on your instrument, because that's what good club DJs do. The new controller allows me to use stems on the controller. So when I'm using my effects in particular, this is where it's huge for me. When I'm using effects in particular, I can pick where I want to have those effects enabled. If I want them on the vocals or high end, that's a place I can do it. If I want it with the drums, I can do that, or the mid section.
Cool.
So I have options there using stems, and it also just has general stems capabilities. So if we do a sing-along and I want to turn off everything or just isolate a vocal, I can just isolate a vocal, then we're just singing along to a vocal, and then I can re-enable it just by pressing the controller. So it just broadens like what you can do as a DJ, and so that's what's exciting to me, because then there's just more growth. There's more growth potential, and it's the perfect instrument and kind of the future.
We like growth.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like if I'm not growing as a DJ, if I'm not growing as a musician and a performer, like you're all gonna know that too, because I'm going to probably start to then phone it in a little bit more.
Yeah,
right.
Which is definitely not what you have been doing.
No, not at all. So I'm excited about, kind of not graduating, but moving on to my next controller, because I love my 1000 SRT. I'm most married to that controller. So there's a little bit of fear, but I think it's good. I think change is it's good to lean into change.
Yes.